what I would love would be to see some more like real-time guidance during calls without it being distracting. We've got all of these call recording tools that we use, but I'd love to see something that would provide that real-time guidance during a call.
Well, Colin, thanks so much for joining Across the Funnel. Really a pleasure to have you.
Thanks for having me.
And very excited to learn more about you and your career in sales. I know we have a lot to discuss. So why don't we just start by learning more about your background? So tell me, you have worked in various companies and you've been for almost 2 years now in your latest role at SG Analytics. So walk me through the path. Are you from these people that knew they wanted to get in sales or randomly ended up in a sales role and stuck with it?
Yeah, absolutely. So, right, you're correct in that. I initially had started out my career in financial services, initially as an analyst in analytics. So I was still working with data and analytics for a company called the Bank of New York Mellon, out of college, and I learned very quickly that I'm a people person, and a back office position, although with a great company, was just not for me. I saw the sales people coming in and out of the office, bringing, high profile clients in and out of the office. And I knew right away, I'm like, that's got to be me. That's where I need to be. And so very early on, I started taking steps to become client facing. And after I left the NY Mellon years ago, I ended up working in financial services still for basically a private markets, capital markets firm in Arizona called Cole Capital, a real estate investment trust. But it was my sort of foot in the door into becoming client facing as a relationship manager or an account manager. So still not where I knew I wanted to be exactly, but heading in the right direction. And so was there for about 4 years, 4 years, and they went through a big acquisition. I'm originally from the East Coast, from the Boston area, and so wanted to ultimately get back to the East Coast and be back close to family. And so when they were acquired by a competitor of theirs out of New York, I took that opportunity to move back to the East Coast and worked in it for a couple of different financial services firms. Eventually, after leaving Cole Capital, I was a wholesaler for a short time for a mutual fund, and started working with Newfound Research, which was kind of a fintech asset manager research firm. And so that was like my first true carrying a bag, a quota, initially selling into firms like UBS, Morgan Stanley, Merrill Lynch. And we had a proprietary algorithm or platform that helped traders buy and sell. So it was a signal type of platform that provided signals to when to get in and get out of certain sectors in the market. And so that was kind of the first step toward tech where I am today. And so I worked there for 4 years. Then around 2015, the financial markets started to change. Things were moving away from mutual funds and toward low-cost ETFs, and that really changed things from a seller's perspective. And so I ended up working with a company called Concentric, which was a predictive analytics company, software, SaaS-based in Cambridge. And we did what-if scenario analysis, and it's a great company. I'd probably still be there today if it weren't for COVID. And so
Yeah.
a lot, you've seen this movie before, 2020, 2019, 2020, just firms they couldn't stay above water. And unfortunately, Concentric ran out of funding, and I feel like they were a little bit ahead of their time, but that led me to Pecan AI, which is another startup. They were based out of Tel Aviv. We did customer journey analytics, demand forecasting, marketing mix modeling. So I was an enterprise account executive for them, growing out the business in the US, and things were good there. I had a couple of years with them there were some internal challenges, which was what ultimately led me to LTI and Mindtree, much larger firm. And I had been with a couple of startups and really liked working with the smaller organizations. But I figured, I'll give another big organization a shot now that I'm in a client-facing role. And so I was with LTI Mindtree. They're based out of India, 100,000 employees, and I learned very quickly that I still preferred those smaller, more scrappy, agile type of companies where you're not just a number, you have a greater impact on bottom line, and it's much more rewarding for me anyway. For others, working for a big company, the stability, the brand recognition, that's great. But for me, I like rolling up my sleeves and having to be scrappy and gritty. And after a short time with LTI Mindtree, I was recruited over to SG Analytics, where I am today. And so I have gone from financial services to software products in the AI ML space to products and services now, and kind of selling as a whole, not just a solution, but a transformation, an outcome, with a product and a services, which is really that's the direction that I see things going, and that's kind of the place that I really like to be.
I couldn't agree more that that's where we're heading. And it sounds like throughout your career, you have a lot of experience with complex sales. So this change management, this bringing new technologies, trying to persuade these slow pace, big red tape orgs to change. So tell me throughout all these years, like what you've seen, kind of like 2, 3 key takeaways of what really makes or breaks that process. So for someone who's now starting in this path of like trying to sell something more transformative, for example, what would be your tips?
Yeah, I think, the complexity for me, it's the challenge of it. I think something, having started out in capital markets and raising private capital, and I think, I really fell in love early with the analytics of everything. Analytics is in everything. And I think for me, it's the challenge of piecing it all together. It's the challenge of selling on value, providing something of value to clients, building a team that can navigate that complexity is critical. It's so important. And I think that, I kind of realized a couple of things. One being enterprise buyers care very deeply about ROI and measurable outcomes. I think that also the sales cycle is long because risk tolerance is low, which is a big challenge, right? And I think, like I said, for the third thing being that, like, really being able to build a team that can navigate around that complexity is very crucial. And so now I'm selling transformation, decision intelligence, AI agents, assistants, data platforms, and the role that I'm in now kind of, it lets me think holistically. How do we help enterprises rethink their data strategy, not just with buying a tool, but really providing architecture and a story and an outcome. So showing that progression from sort of product to solutions, I think is really important.
And I also enjoyed that part, honestly, the challenge and the strategy that's required, especially understanding the motivators of each of the stakeholders and trying to build a true business case, because everybody has an opinion about what should be the priority, right? But there can only be so many. But to your point with the education part, that sales cycle can get too lengthy. So historically, how have you managed to create some urgency? Like what levers do you push? They're looking for the ROI. So Is it more of a cost benefit analysis? Like, what have you done to show, hey, we need to start now?
Yeah, I think there are a couple of different approaches. I think that work there. And I think first it's not necessarily creating the urgency, but it's more about like discovering that urgency and
Mm,
is there urgency there? Because if there's not, then that may not be the right opportunity for me to focus on right now.
mhm.
And so throughout my pipeline and when I'm talking to prospects, I'm looking to discover that urgency, to understand how quickly they're looking to get things done, and but also asking questions like what happens if nothing happens, right? What happens if you do nothing? What's that opportunity cost? What does that look like? Um, and so by uncovering those types of questions, it sort of helps to paint that picture of urgency. And if there's not urgency there, it's difficult to create. And there are tactics, of course, that you can use to create urgency. Fear of missing out, obviously, and your competitors are doing this. Everybody's talking about AI and machine learning and agents and LLMs, but I think for those the really good deals, the ones that I like to focus on, the prospects, they're telling me, I'm getting them to open up to me about their situation and how much urgency is already there.
Yeah. Yeah. So it's all about good discovery and building that trust with them that they will actually share. Now, taking that again, there's all sorts of profiles within a buyer committee, right? Like you have the more analytical ones, the more big picture ones. So, how do you teach your team to prepare for these calls? Like how the first ever discovery call they'll have? What is kind of the best practice you teaching them?
Yeah, this is kind of one of my favorite challenges. I think there are things that I like to focus on. I hire sellers who have a track record of closing enterprise deals. I'm looking for those who have closed enterprise deals, but I'm they may have come from enterprise software, infrastructure, or other areas in the market, but they may not know analytics, and so my approach is we don't throw them into the technical weeds. I don't like to throw them into the technical weeds right away. I start with business context. I have them sit with me and walk them through, 3 to 4 real customer examples, customers of mine that I've worked with, Disney, Subway, AT&T, talking about like these real stories and real examples so that I can help them understand not not the technology, but the business problem that's being solved and the executive who cares about solving it. And second, I think I like to pair them with a technical buddy, right?
Mhm.
Somebody that is usually from our delivery team, somebody that's very technical and can speak on a technical level with prospects who they can call without being defensive. And I tell them, you're not expected to know the technical answer. You're expected to know when to bring in the expert and ask the right follow-up questions. Like that's the important thing. And then thirdly, I have them sit in on discovery calls with me for like the first month. To have them listen, I have them take notes. I like to have them hear how I ask questions about ROI, about timeline, about constraints and champion dynamics, right? And I'm modeling the behavior that I want them to replicate. And then by month 2, or 6 weeks in or so, they're leading the discovery calls with me shadowing. And so instead of them shadowing, and then by month 3, they're autonomous. They're still learning, technical resources, but the confidence is there, and you're starting to see that come through, especially after they close their first deal. So it really helps show that I can be a multiplier. I can hire multipliers, and I like to try and demonstrate, systematic onboarding, not trials by fire.
So what I really like about what you're saying is the buddy system, but I want to also ask the following question, because yesterday I was talking to a friend of mine who's a CRO, and his team is similar, like they have solution engineers and enterprise AEs, and he and others, some of our clients have shared the same challenge, say that it's very hard to align them because obviously solution engineers know the product inside out, but they're not sellers. So sometimes you have, as the seller, to put extra effort in structuring an agenda that works and kind of controlling, okay, the time the engineer needs to speak, the time this person speaks, and a 30-minute window. It's very hard to do this and cover everything the prospect wants to hear and secure the next step, right? So that is a whole other skill set. It's more like even maybe an operation thing rather than a sales skill per se. So how have you managed to achieve that? Like, what's your preparation when it comes to the agenda? Like, this is what we're going to talk as a team, and this is who will talk about what.
Yeah, it's a great question. I think it's very important, right? That first call is when you're looking to uncover their pain, their needs, their time frame, right? Not necessarily budget, but or even authority. But I think you're as an enterprise seller, you're doing more listening than talking. I mean, you're asking questions, very specific questions that are meant to probe for information and get them talking, to pull information out of them. And so the preparation that goes into those very first discovery calls, and now with ChatGPT and tools, like it's even more easy to be able to pull information that's out there, get a good intelligence report about that prospect, understand the type of work that they're doing, look at the postings, or have a tool pull a summary of postings that they're talking about, maybe positions that they're hiring for, and that'll give you a good sense of the types of projects they're working on, and if there's any type of need. So a lot of preparation goes into that discovery call, laying out a clear agenda, giving a quick background of who we are as a company, but really not spending very much time. And I honestly don't even like to do too much of share or screen sharing during that first call. I'm not typically doing any kind of demos or anything. It's just a conversation. It's an open conversation. I'm asking questions of them, getting them to uncover, is there a need? Why did they decide to take this call? And having those specific pointed questions ready to go up front, and then leaving a couple of minutes at the end to obviously schedule that next call. If the call is going in that direction, it's okay to qualify out very early, right? You want to qualify out as quickly as possible. So if it's not a good opportunity, that's no problem. Put a pin in it, table it, whatever, come back to it later. But it's spending a lot of time preparing, asking a couple of very specific questions, getting them to talk, and then spending time like just actively listening, and asking follow-up questions to sort of guide them in that right direction, to understand, who else could we be speaking to? Have you ever gone through the software or solutions buying process yourself, right? That's a big one that I like to have my team ask. That opens up, is this something that they've ever even done? Are we even talking to the right person? Do they know how to get other stakeholders involved in the conversation? So that's something that's really important. And then the tools, right? The tools that we're using I mean, I've made call recording and analysis pretty much a non-negotiable in my sales organization. I think every rep knows their deals are being listened to, not as like a gotcha moment, but as coaching opportunities. It's just so important now that we have this technology available to be recording calls, transcribing them, using AI to flag specific moments. Did the rep ask about X? Did they ask about budget? Did they uncover a timeline? Like I said, I don't think budget's too big of a deal, but
Mhm.
are they uncovering that urgency, or were they just talking, right? And so that the metadata that you're pulling out of those initial conversations can really, that's valuable information. So yeah, I think that's some of what I like to do in with today's market.
So are you looking into also specific sales methodology, like if they follow specific process like that, or what do you use?
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. So I've been a big follower of the MEDDIC sales
Mhm.
qualification process. I don't know. I don't think it's really a methodology, but more of a good qualification process. So, understanding the metrics that are important to the person, right? The prospect, which metrics do they own? Which KPIs do they own? Trying to maybe uncover that economic buyer early on. All of the points of MEDDIC, right? Are how they decide to buy, what's their decision process like, who needs to be involved, who has that signing authority. um, of course, really none of it can move forward if you haven't identified that pain or initiative, that champion, and that economic buyer. That's I like to call it ICE, right? And ICE obviously is a big word.
Triggering.
Yeah, but a trigger in today's world. But really, without those three things, like an opportunity is doomed for failure. It's destined for failure right from the get-go if you can't identify those 3 points.
Earlier, you mentioned also looking to ChatGPT, for example, about the company. What are the things you look for there? Is it more like the 10Ks and like recent news, their products? What are the questions you ask it?
Yeah, so I think that kind of goes into the call preparation, right?
Mhm.
I'm using AI, ChatGPT, Gemini, Claude, whatever, to scrape for postings, for job descriptions. And we're looking at the company they work for, and the hiring that they're doing, the types of roles they're hiring for. Are they hiring, a bunch of data scientists or machine learning engineers or AI architects, right? And what are the keywords they're using in those postings, the skills that they're looking for, their candidates to have, other LinkedIn posts, and going to LinkedIn and seeing how many data scientists they already have, or machine learning engineers or data engineers they already have. That helps put together a story. And it helps to put together some intelligence that you can use to sort of guide that discovery call. um,
Mhm.
and also it can guide you in terms of the right companies to go after, the target accounts that you should be going after, because there are many organizations out there that have lots of hiring going on, and you can really leverage that to your advantage. um, and really target those types of
Mm.
companies that are doing a lot of hiring, and the type of hiring they're doing based on the keywords, and that can facilitate deal flow, and really help deals move along faster.
Yeah. I mean, I do the same. Like, I feel like everybody right now is using ChatGPT for company
Mhm.
research and these
Right.
signals. I totally agree. However, there's still a gap in terms of the person, right? You might know everything about the account, and you still might feel like, I don't really know who I'm about to speak to. And for
Right.
someone like you, I mean, a seasoned sales leader, of course, you can tailor your approach once in the call. Like, you can understand this person is too detail oriented or extrovert or whatever and adjust. But
Right.
we noticed that, there is basically it's about the timing. It's too late to figure these things out during the call. You need to start prepared.
Yeah.
So anyway, the reason why I found Indexago was to give these insights to people on the communication style of their prospect, and give them insights on how to best approach them, things to avoid, like key talking points. So right before this, I ran the extension on your profile to see what it says.
Yeah.
And I would love you to, if you can tell me if you think it's accurate.
That'd be great. I'd be happy to.
So firstly, here what you see is it says we are 88% compatible, meaning our communication styles are similar, so don't need to adjust my communication style. But let's say it was 30 or 40, I would, and
Right.
this is how. So I'll let you read this to tell me if you think that's you.
This is interesting. Yeah. Okay. So I'm looking for,
So you're hard to convince, it says.
yeah. Okay.
Tough buyer here. You're
Yeah.
focused on the quality.
Yep.
If I was to reach out to you, I can make it objective, medium size, but formal.
Yeah.
And then here, based on this, it says I need to focus on more detailed information, like probably case studies. You'll ask me a lot of questions.
That's really
And
good.
yeah.
Yeah, that's impressive. It is spot on in terms of I'm a very like factual, like if you come to me and present a bunch of facts, I'm very open to hearing those facts, and also if I'm believing one thing and you present a bunch of facts that might sway me the other way, I'm very open to moving or changing my position. So I would say that's
Oh, that's very interesting. Yeah, see, like,
good.
how would I know that just by reading your posts? Like, AI
Right.
is amazing in that combines all these data points. Like, this found public data about you. If we had, let's say, previous conversations, it would also take recordings, like you were saying. The post-call analysis is very
Yes.
important.
Yeah.
But in short, from what it gathered, it figured out your key motivators. So now, if I were to pitch you, I would know to highlight, let's say, teamwork, like how this would help you maybe work with the SDRs in India, right? And your team
Yeah.
here. Talking about facts, it also analyzes DISC and Ocean. So it would say, this is me, this is you, you're an evaluator, which
Yep.
makes sense with what you
Yep.
said. And then I can say, okay, this is a very high D and high C consensus buyer. So what does that mean? Let's say I was very low on D. I can assume that we'll go in a call and you will set up the agenda for me. So as a
Yeah.
seller, I need to know that, hey, this person will take the lead. So I have to maybe be proactive and send them an email prior to this with the agenda.
Yep. Yep.
So it's all
Exactly.
about preparation and like knowing potential objections, right? Like, how can I proactively make sure that I answer your questions,
Right.
calm down, and then continue the discussion?
I liked there was under one of the avoids, it was the first one was saying avoid inviting them to any social interactions until you've built some rapport. It's spot on. I will not go to a lunch or anything without having some chemistry, some connection, something that we've, bonded on, and it makes, or it seems to be good use of my time.
I'm like that too.
Yeah, there needs to be something there, a connection before I'll go and to a happy hour or something like that.
Yeah. I mean, I get these messages too, like, hey, I'm traveling from somewhere. I'm in New York. Let's grab a coffee. I'm like, I don't even know you. Why would I want to go
Right.
for coffee?
Right. Yeah. You've got to do better than that.
You're right.
Build some rapport
Yeah.
first.
So,
Mhm.
but let's go back to coaching your
Yeah.
team. Like, we talked
Yeah.
about discovery skills a lot, and I'm curious, like, if you can remember a case, maybe last year or in previous roles, where someone came to you and were like, Colin, I'm about to lose the deal, and you figure out a way through coaching to get them to save it, or even if it was pushed, to next quarter. But where have you seen coaching really have an impact in your career?
Yeah, I think I mean, things like that happen all the time, right? Where deals get pushed, or there was lack of preparation, and questions were asked and that they may have fumbled, or whatever it may be. But I think it's failing fast is important. I think, getting them to put all of the options out on the table as with the prospect as early as possible, so that if there is a mistake that was made, or the tone of the conversation wasn't positive enough, and we can kind of pinpoint that, it's now through the transcription of the call or whatever. But it's I'm looking for that main point, to be able to uncover that what went wrong, why it went wrong. And it may require me getting on a call to try to smooth things over, or to try to ask some more questions about what would they like to see, or what would they need to see in order for the relationship to continue forward. I think when it comes to tools, what I would love would be to see some more like real-time guidance during calls without it being distracting. I
Yeah.
probably not too far away from this. We've got all of these call recording tools that we use, but I'd love to see something that would provide that real-time guidance during a call, where if the prospect was asking a question, and it was sort of the 1 or 2 or 3-part question, whatever, you could have the information there, and it could sort of nudge you and say, right, whatever that answer might be, or or it could be like, you're 25 minutes in and you haven't uncovered who the economic buyer is, or uncovered that need yet. But I think, right, that requires the tool to understand the deal stage and dynamics, and we might not quite be there yet, but I think, like I said, not too
We're
far.
definitely close. Yeah. And
Yeah,
it basically needs to know your knowledge base, and to your point, like, what would a good call be? That's why the agenda part is so important, knowing, okay, what do we have to achieve in this call based on the stage, and
exactly.
post-call analysis. Okay, you missed this part, come back. Or you know what, like, based on the compatibility here, your manager has a better one, so nudge them to do an executive communication rather than you following up again and again, not hearing back.
Right.
So it's definitely getting there. I agree. I think the issue with like post-call analysis today is it just tells you what happened, not why or how to improve, right? So the issue with that I see in a lot of these tools is they measure too much the things like talk to listen ratio, or like you said, like, did you follow methodology? But behind this, there's much more. Like, why was I not able to ask about budget, for example? Maybe because the prospect already told me we don't have budget, or
Right.
like the context of the call sometimes is gone because each deal is so different, each company is so different. So AI has to be very flexible and configurable for this to work. But usually, what's like the sales process for you? Like, how many meetings, like key meetings, do you have?
Yeah, I mean, it's typically, it can go from 7 or 8 meetings to sometimes 12 meetings. It kind of depends on the urgency, the need. I mean, in some cases, I've had prospects bring a 1-page outline of all of their pain points and what they need when they're looking for it to be implemented, and the budget that they have, and those are obviously the bluebirds that we like to call them. But then in most cases, it's going to take that discovery call, and maybe a second call where you're diving a little bit deeper, and then those L3 calls, L4 calls, where you're bringing in a technical resource and doing the technical feasibility and data feasibility to understand where the data sits, how accessible it is, how structured or unstructured it is. It all starts with data and how AI ready it is, or how much work needs to go into it to make it AI ready. And so that will kind of dictate how many more calls or meetings it'll take before that deal moves into negotiations. But yeah, I mean, it typically 7-8 meetings before we're reaching like a verbal agreement.
Cool. Now let's move into some reflection. Looking back into your career, what would you say has been a leadership mistake you've done that you wouldn't do again because it cost you?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think, thinking back earlier in my career, I was at Newfound Research. I was one of the top producers there, and I made a mistake where I thought that I should have kept my best deals for myself rather than handing them to a developing rep, right? I thought that, being a top producer meant hang on to those deals and keep them to myself rather than handing them off. I kind of told myself it was risk management, right? If I gave up this $300,000 deal to a junior rep, we might lose it. So I'll take it. But what I was really doing was hoarding. And I was kind of thinking like an individual contributor and not a leader. And that in that situation, like that cost me. It didn't develop a bench of strong sellers. And when I was eventually promoted to VP of sales at Newfound, I didn't have a team ready to scale, and I had to hire externally when I should have been developing them internally. And so what I've learned from that is that I've tried to make the opposite true now. And I'm always asking myself, which rep needs this deal for their confidence in their development? Early in the year, I'm probably giving deals to high potential mid-tier reps rather than the sure thing. And so, that could mean I'm sacrificing a few points of quota in January to really build a team that crushes it in Q4. And also the shift. There's I guess a shift in how I hire. I'm not looking for people who need me to close deals for them. I'm really looking for people who I can coach into greatness. And the difference is subtle, but it's really everything. And it requires me to kind of keep doing the work. One requires me to keep doing the work, and the other requires me to teach them how to do the work. And I think that's the big difference there.
Couldn't agree more. Coachability is something that, whether you're talking about a seller or an employee, really is that key to leadership that shows that potential for growth. And it's something I believe a lot of people, due to the sales culture, are forgetting, and they do the opposite. Like you're saying, they want them perfect, and they forget that if someone is such a perfect seller, they can work anywhere, let alone they can create their own company. So it's such a bigger challenge to maintain that high performer. And it's also very risky because you can burn them out. Like you can say, you did great this quarter, I'll double your quota. And they're like, what do you mean? Just because I performed like last quarter doesn't mean you have to drain me the next.
Right. Yeah. That's a morale killer. And it still needs to be attainable. We want to make it challenging for them, but attainable at the same time. And if it's too challenging or unattainable, you're setting them up for failure.
Yeah. And it sounds like you spend a lot of time one-on-one with your reps, like you get to know them. So what's the cadence? Do you have structure like performance reviews quarterly, but more informal ones? Talk to me a little bit.
Yeah, exactly. I think it's important to have some kind of structure in place, right? So especially from the top brass, right? They're going to want to see who how you're meeting, on what sort of intervals you're meeting with these individual contributors. But
Mhm.
I want them to feel like they can come to me anytime, right? It shouldn't just be once a week that we're having a formal one-on-one, and once a quarter we're doing a more formal individual pipeline review or deal review. I want to be able to talk with them for 5-10 minutes on a daily basis, and not necessarily about work, just to help build that trust and to show them that I'm not trying to micromanage. Like it's if micromanaging has to be put in place so that if they can do their jobs correctly, they're not the right person for the job, right? At this
Mhm.
point, right, with the amount that they're being paid, and the amount that they're looking to be paid through incentives, I shouldn't have to be holding their hands or babysitting, and so I want to be a resource for them, and I'm going to let them do their jobs. But I at the same time, I want them to be able to come to me and know that they can come to me whenever they need help. And I try to lead by example and do the same thing.
Awesome. Last question, I guess,
Yeah.
looking into Q1 and beyond now, what are some of your priorities, like personally and as a whole, as a company, like within the US? Are you looking to expand in any verticals or do any partnerships? If you can share high
Yeah,
level goals.
yeah, absolutely. So I think we're really at an exciting inflection point. I think, that 2026, we're seeing buyer behavior shifting dramatically toward AI and analytics. Our firm is positioned perfectly for that. I think vertically, we're really doubling down on the BFSI space, media, some CPG and retail as well, even though it's a little bit more saturated, where we have the areas that we've got proven wins in industry expertise. I think these sectors have budgets. There's urgency around monetization and modernization as well.
Mhm.
But I'm very excited about where things are going. I think, on partnerships, we're actively in works to co-sell with Snowflakes and the Databricks. I mean, these
Oh,
companies are, investing in partners who can architect analytics on top of their platforms, and I really see a huge opportunity to kind of position as really the implementation and modernization partner for enterprises using modern data stacks. I think the big shift is in our go-to-market. The old model was, sell a big engagement, seven-figure deals, big whale opportunities. And the new model is it's land smaller discovery projects, prove
mhm.
value first, and systematically expand across the organization. And that means, a rep might close a $50,000 assessment project that we know will lead to a $500,000 implementation. And that's what we're seeing a lot of the market shifting towards: smaller buying committees, the C-level executives shifting or pushing buying authority down to heads of departments. Still, yeah, I think IT is sort of central IT has a big hand in the buying and decision
Yes.
authority, but I think we're really seeing a shift towards smaller deals initially. We're seeing a shift toward outcome-based pricing, away from
Yes.
the time and materials, fixed cost and materials, and that commercial structuring, to more of that outcome-based pricing.
Yeah.
And I think it's an exciting year. Discoverability is a big thing, right? The way that prospects look for and research vendors is shifting. They're no longer going to Google. They're using AI and peer reviews for discoverability and for finding out who the best vendor is. So that's incredibly important to become discoverable in large language models and to have good reviews from peers. So yeah, a lot happening and really a lot to be excited about in this upcoming year.
Yeah, I see the same. I see this push of buyer authority for sure. I also think last year there was a lot of debates about the outcome-based pricing
Right.
because people were like, I don't know how will I budget for these, but yeah, sounds fair. But now more and more people are shifting gears. I'm thinking of doing the same, to be honest.
Yeah.
But it goes back to what you were saying originally, that the value has to be there. I mean,
Right.
not everybody can do that unless they can prove black and white ROI.
Exactly.
So it's
Exactly.
a good challenge for the entire industry. I think that's awesome. I think we're heading the right direction, and the
Yeah.
combination of AI and the human touch and the relationship-based selling, all this is coming back much stronger. But I really want to thank you for all your insights. It's been
Yeah.
awesome to learn from you, and I hope the audience took away a lot of interesting things. And we'll put your LinkedIn, so if someone wants to
Yeah.
reach out and has more questions,
That
get
would be
book
great.
recommendations, we'll
Yeah.
help you.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Thank
Absolutely.
you so much, Colin. I
Yeah,
appreciate it.
thank you. It was a pleasure chatting with you. Thank you for having me on again. And I wish you the very best with everything and the podcast, and happy to come on again anytime.
Awesome. Wonderful. Thanks.
Thanks so much.